Hey there. Ready for a peek into the future?
Always.
Today, we're diving into an analysis, predicting 5 companies that could really take off in 2025.
If the U.S. stock market cooperates, that is.
Exactly. Always got to add that caveat.
For sure.
What I found really interesting about this analysis is it's not just a list of names.
Right.
It actually gives you the experts' reasoning behind each pick, so we get to see how they're thinking.
Like what factors they're weighing, how they're analyzing the market. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like getting a little insider scoop.
Cool.
So our source material is an article, the title's a bit catchy. Yeah. Se pegó el texto. 5 acciones que pueden multiplicar tu dinero en 2025. Descubre cómo.
Okay.
Which translates to,
Hang on, let me get my notes. I wrote that down.
Oh, yeah.
The text stuck. 5 stocks that can multiply your money in 2025. Find out how.
I know, right?
Catchy.
And what's cool is we get detailed commentary on each company.
Yeah, that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. It's like a window into how this expert, sees these different industries evolving.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not an investor. It's fascinating stuff.
Definitely. But before we get too deep, standard disclaimer, this isn't financial advice.
Right. Always do your own research.
Exactly.
Don't just take our word for it.
This is just us exploring the expert's rationale.
Yeah. Critical thinking is key, especially with finances.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, so first company on the list, Zoom. They obviously had that huge boom during the pandemic, but things have, changed since then. How does this expert see them navigating this new landscape?
Yeah, it's a good question. The expert actually acknowledges that it's tough to maintain that kind of growth, but they're still pretty optimistic about Zoom. They see Zoom staying on top in video conferencing, keeping that leadership position.
How do they think that'll happen?
Well, they highlight a couple of things. Continuous innovation, making strategic moves. One specific example they give is Zoom's investment in AI, which,
it's everywhere these days.
Right. It's all the rage.
But is it really more than just a buzzword, especially for a company like Zoom?
That's a good question, and it's something the expert addresses directly. For Zoom, AI isn't just hype. It's a way to actually improve their products and solve real problems.
I see. So it's practical.
Exactly. And it seems like investor sentiment is starting to reflect that.
Oh, how so?
Well, the article mentions that there was this whole narrative about Zoom being, quote, a victim of its own success.
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing that.
But that seems to be changing. The stock is actually rebounding.
Interesting. So what's the expert's concrete prediction for the stock, like numbers-wise?
They believe Zoom could hit $99 in 2025.
Okay, that's significant.
And the article really highlights how AI is going to be a key driver for that growth.
Makes sense, given what we were just saying.
Yeah, they point to things like improved call quality, real-time translation during calls, even a more personalized user experience.
Wow, so no more struggling to understand colleagues with strong accents.
Exactly.
Although, can you imagine the AI translation mishaps?
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be some potential for comedy there.
Oh, absolutely. Some hilarious situations for sure.
But yeah, the potential is huge.
Definitely. But it's not all sunshine and roses,
Right. There are always risks.
The expert does mention increased competition, other video conferencing platforms coming up.
It's a competitive market for sure.
You got to look at both sides of the coin.
Always. Okay, let's move on to the next company on the list. Klarna.
Klarna, okay.
I've used their buy now, pay later service a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super convenient, to break up payments.
Totally.
But I'm curious to hear what this expert sees in them, why they're a stock to watch.
Well, the whole buy now, pay later trend is really shaking up the financial world.
I could see that.
And Klarna is, right at the forefront.
Okay.
The expert actually predicts an IPO for them soon.
An IPO.
Yeah, an initial public offering.
So they're going public.
Exactly, and they're really focusing on expanding in the U.S.
So betting big on America, huh?
Yeah, it seems so.
But for someone who might not be familiar with all the financial jargon,
right?
What exactly does an IPO mean?
Well, basically, it's when a private company like Klarna offers shares of its stock to the public for the first time.
I see.
So it's how they raise capital and become, publicly traded on the stock market.
Okay, got it. So that's a pretty big deal.
It is. It means they're serious about growth. The source mentions that Klarna actually filed a draft with the SEC, confidentially, of course.
The SEC?
The Securities and Exchange Commission, the regulatory body.
Right.
So, yeah, looks like they're getting ready to go public.
That's interesting. But there's so many buy now, pay later services popping up these days.
True.
What makes Klarna stand out to this expert, compared to all the others?
Well, a couple of things, actually. Firstly, their focus on the U.S. market right now is, strategic. It's a huge market, a lot of potential for growth.
Yeah, makes sense.
And secondly, Klarna is constantly innovating, especially with AI. They're using AI for things like customer service and chat management.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, which actually helps them keep costs down.
I've used those chatbots before for customer service.
Right, so you can see how that could work.
Yeah, it's like they're using technology to not just compete, but to really streamline their whole operation.
Exactly, working smarter, not harder.
But I do wonder, about the potential downsides of this whole buy now, pay later trend.
Yeah, that's a good point. The expert doesn't shy away from that. It can lead to overspending, debt, if it's not used responsibly.
Absolutely. You got to be careful with that.
Definitely. It's about finding that balance, the benefits and the risks.
Okay, well, on to the next company. And I think this one needs no introduction.
Let's hear it.
Google.
Ah, the big G.
Exactly. But what makes them stand out to this expert, especially since they're already such a massive company?
That's what I thought was fascinating. The article doesn't focus on Google's obvious strengths.
Like their search engine. Yeah, everyone knows that.
Exactly. Instead, the expert is really intrigued by their investments in things like AI and quantum computing.
Quantum computing.
Yeah, it sounds like science fiction, right?
A little bit, yeah.
But it shows that Google's looking way ahead, beyond what they're doing now.
I see. Long-term vision.
Yeah. And the expert believes that, combined with their already strong track record of growth and profit, makes them a really solid long-term investment.
Okay, I get that. But, isn't Google already so huge? How much more can they really grow?
It's a fair question, and the expert actually addresses that head-on. They point out that Google was actually undervalued in 2024, despite all its potential.
Interesting. So they're seeing Google as like a sleeping giant.
Exactly. A giant with a lot more room to grow.
And the expert's prediction for the stock price?
They believe it could reach $224 in 2025.
Whoa, that's a big jump.
It is. And they're basing that on Google's consistent double-digit annual earnings growth.
So they're not just pulling that number out of thin air.
No, they've got the data to back it up. Plus, with those investments in AI and quantum computing, who knows what new revenue streams might open up.
Yeah, true. But it's not all smooth sailing, right?
Well, the expert does mention one potential risk: the possible separation of Google Chrome from the rest of the business.
Oh, wow. I hadn't heard about that. What would that even look like?
It's not totally clear yet. The article doesn't give specifics, but it's definitely something to watch. Could have a big impact on Google.
For sure. That's a big change.
Yeah. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Okay, on to company number 4. And this one, I have to admit, I wasn't familiar with at all.
Really?
Mondelez International.
Mondelez International, okay.
The name didn't really ring a bell until I read the article, but it turns out they own some brands that are definitely household names.
Interesting. What kind of brand?
We're talking Oreo,
yeah,
Milka, Trident, Ritz.
Oh, wow. Oreos.
I know, right? Big snack food company.
I had no idea.
But the article also mentions that Mondelez International has been facing some, challenges lately.
Challenges, okay.
Yeah. So why is this expert so bullish on them then?
Yeah, it's a good question. The article acknowledges that their stock price has been going down, and the reason, it seems, is they're having a bit of trouble adapting to, changing consumer preferences.
Like what?
Well, specifically, the shift toward healthier snacks.
Oh, right.
Everyone's all about healthy eating these days.
Feels like it, yeah.
So that's the challenge for Mondelez.
Okay, so how does this expert see them overcoming that? People are still going to want their Oreos, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. The expert actually highlights that even with these challenges, Mondelez International has surprisingly strong financials.
Strong financials.
Yeah, they've consistently beaten what analysts expected, and they also offer a pretty decent dividend.
A dividend.
Which is currently yielding 3.14%.
Hang on, break that down for me. What does that mean? Dividend yield.
Oh, sure. So a dividend is basically a portion of a company's profits that gets paid out to shareholders.
Okay.
And the yield is just that dividend amount as a percentage of the current stock price.
So in this case, for every $100 invested,
you'd get $3.14 per year in dividends.
Okay, that makes sense. So even though their stock price is down, they're still rewarding investors.
Right, exactly. And the expert sees this as part of a bigger picture. They think this could be a classic, buy low, sell high opportunity.
Buy low, sell high. Okay.
So if Mondelez International can figure out how to, appeal to those health-conscious consumers, their current low stock price could be a great entry point for investors.
So it's a bit of a gamble on their ability to adapt, right?
Yeah, you could say that. But the expert seems to think they have what it takes. They've got established brands, global reach, economies of scale, strong relationships with suppliers.
Yeah, those are definitely some big advantages.
Yeah, so it's really about leveraging those strengths to meet the, evolving demands of the market.
I see. It's like they have all the pieces, just got to put the puzzle together.
Right, exactly.
All right, last company on the list, and this one's been through a lot lately.
Intriguing.
Meta, formerly known as Facebook.
Oh yeah, Meta.
It's been a roller coaster, to say the least.
Definitely. Lots of ups and downs.
But we're all about the future here, and this expert has a surprising take on their prospects for 2025.
Okay, I'm curious now.
I'll admit I was a little skeptical at first.
Why's that?
Meta just seems to have lost some of its shine. What makes this expert so bullish on them?
Well, their analysis actually focuses on something you might not expect. Meta's investments in data centers.
Data centers.
Yeah. And they believe these investments will be a major driver of growth for Meta in 2025, especially if the market does well overall.
Huh. That's interesting. Data centers, that's not exactly as, flashy as the metaverse or virtual reality.
Right. It's a bit more behind the scenes.
Yeah. So how do data centers translate into growth, I guess?
Well, think about it. Data centers are like the backbone of everything we do online.
Okay.
They store and process all that information, all that data we generate.
Right.
And as more and more of our lives move online, well, the demand for that data storage and processing power is only going to go up.
So Meta is basically positioning themselves to be the ones handling all that data.
Exactly. They're making strategic investments to become a major player in this critical infrastructure.
Okay, I see.
And the experts' belief in Meta isn't just talk,
Oh, is there something else?
Yeah, they actually reveal in the article that they sold off their previous Meta positions.
They what?
Yeah, sold them off, and now they're waiting for a dip in the price to buy back in.
Wow, so they're putting their money where their mouth is, huh?
Exactly. It shows a real conviction in Meta's potential, despite all the, recent turbulence.
Definitely a bold move. Well, that's our 5 companies. Zoom, Klarna, Google, Mondelez International, and Meta.
Quite a mix.
A lot to unpack there.
For sure. From AI to snack foods to data centers.
It's been fascinating so far. But I'm curious, what stands out to you the most from all these predictions?
That's a good question. I think, for me, what really jumps out is this emphasis on adaptation.
Adaptation.
Yeah. Every single company on this list is facing some kind of challenge, some kind of disruption, whether it's changing consumer tastes, technological advancements, competition, you name it.
That's true. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Right. It's not about finding companies that are immune to change.
Because those don't exist.
Exactly. It's about finding the ones that are best equipped to navigate it, to evolve.
And this expert seems to believe that these 5 companies have what it takes to not just survive, but thrive in this, constantly changing world.
Absolutely. It's not about picking winners and losers. It's about identifying the companies that are best positioned to actually shape the future.
That's a great point. Well said.
And that actually leads us perfectly into the next part of our deep dive.
Oh, right.
We've talked big picture, but now it's time to get a bit more granular.
Love it. Let's get into the details.
We'll delve into some specific data points, insights from the experts' analysis, really see what metrics they're looking at, what trends they're observing, what could make or break these companies in 2025.
This is where the rubber meets the road, right?
Exactly. Time to dissect these predictions and see what makes them tick.
I'm ready. Stay tuned, everyone.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Ready for more?
Absolutely. That part about the experts selling their Meta shares, that really stuck with me.
Yeah, it's a bold move.
It is. Shows real conviction, going beyond just the numbers.
Definitely. It speaks to this idea of not just, following trends, but really understanding a company, what are their fundamentals?
Exactly. Looking at the long game.
Right. Long-term growth potential.
Which is what this whole deep dive is about, right? Mm-hmm. Not just where the stock is today, but where it might be headed.
Precisely. And that's what separates successful investors, right? Yeah. They're not just reacting, they're anticipating.
Seeing the shifts before everyone else.
Exactly.
So let's do a quick recap of what we've covered so far.
Sounds good.
We started with Zoom, their big investment in AI. The expert thinks that's going to help them stay ahead in video conferencing, even as things change, post-pandemic.
Yeah, and it's not just about staying afloat, right? It's about actually enhancing their offering.
Right, like that real-time translation during calls. That was pretty mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah. Imagine the possibilities there for businesses, education, just connecting with people.
Global communication without barriers. That's huge.
Definitely.
Then we moved on to Klarna, shaking things up with that buy now, pay later model.
Disrupting the industry.
And the expert thinks an IPO is coming soon, which we explained, for anyone who's not a Wall Street whiz.
Yeah, basically their big debut on the stock market.
Exactly.
And the expert was impressed with, their focus on the U.S. and how they're using AI to make everything run smoother.
Streamlining the whole operation.
Right. But we also talked about the potential downsides, that buy now, pay later can be tricky if you're not careful.
Yeah, debt can sneak up on you.
For sure. It's a tool. Got to use it wisely.
And then, we talked about the big one, Google.
Google. Yeah, already a giant.
But this expert wasn't focused on that. They were excited about, AI and even quantum computing.
Yeah, those are the game changers, the long-term bets.
It's like they're playing a different game than everyone else.
It's true. Thinking way ahead.
And their prediction, Google's stock hitting $224 in 2025. That's a big statement.
It is, but they back it up. Looking at their earnings growth, those consistent double-digit increases.
Yeah, they're not just throwing darts at a board.
Not at all. But there was that one potential risk, remember?
Oh, yeah, that whole thing about Google Chrome potentially being separated.
Yeah, the article didn't get into specifics, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
For sure. They could be huge.
Definitely a curveball.
Then we had Mondelez International.
Mondelez, yeah, the snack food powerhouse.
Right. Who knew they owned Oreos and Ritz and all that?
It's funny how these big companies own so many brands we know.
It is. But they're facing that challenge, with people wanting healthier options.
Adapting to the times, right.
But the expert sees it as a buying opportunity, that buy low, sell high thing.
Yeah, if they can make that shift, towards healthier snacks.
They've got the resources, the brand recognition. It's just, can they execute?
Right, that's the key question.
And finally, Meta.
Meta, yeah, lots of talk about them lately.
I was a bit skeptical at first, to be honest.
Yeah, they've had a rough go of it.
But the experts' focus on data centers, that was interesting.
It was. It highlights how important it is to look deeper,
Beyond the headlines.
Exactly. Data centers, they're the foundation of everything online.
And Meta's betting big on that.
They are. And remember, the expert sold their own shares, waiting to buy back in.
Yeah, that shows real commitment, putting their money where their mouth is.
It does. So we've covered a lot, different industries, different companies, lots of potential for 2025.
A whirlwind tour of the stock market.
Pretty much. But it's fascinating stuff, right?
Absolutely. What stood out to you the most?
Tough question. I think for me, it's the importance of adaptation.
Adaptation.
Every company we talked about, they're all facing some kind of challenge.
Changing consumer preferences, new technology, competition. It's a lot.
It is. And it's not about finding companies that are immune to all that.
Because there aren't any.
Right. It's about finding the ones that can adapt, that can evolve.
The survivors, the ones who can roll with the punches.
Exactly. And this expert seems to think that these 5 companies have what it takes, not just to survive, but to really thrive.
They're the ones shaping the future.
Right. And that's a perfect segue, actually, to the next part of our deep dive.
Oh, yeah. What's next?
We've talked big picture, and now it's time to get specific.
Love it. Bring on the details.
Let's do it. We'll dive into the data, the metrics, the trends, all that good stuff.
Time to dissect these predictions.
Exactly. See what makes them tick.
Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back. All right, we've talked big picture, explored the trends, but now let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Time for the details.
What are the specific data points, the insights that this expert is using to make these predictions?
Let's revisit each company and see what we can find. Starting with Zoom, the expert highlighted their investment in AI as a key driver for growth.
AI seems to be the hot topic for a lot of these companies.
It does, doesn't it? Almost like it's a must-have for any growth strategy these days.
Right, but the expert made a good point. For Zoom, it's not just about following the trend.
Exactly. They're using AI to solve real problems, improve their core product.
Yeah, the article mentioned things like using AI to enhance call quality.
Oh, we've all been there, right?
Absolutely. When your internet decides to die mid-presentation.
The worst. But it goes beyond just fixing those glitches.
Right. They also talked about real-time translation during calls.
Now that's next level stuff.
Imagine seamless communication no matter the language.
It could revolutionize how we connect, for business, education, even just personal calls.
It's a game changer for sure.
And that kind of innovation could justify the expert's price prediction for Zoom.
Reaching $99 in 2025, that was a bold one.
It was. But we can't forget about the risks either.
Right, there are always challenges.
The expert acknowledged that competition in video conferencing is fierce.
It's a tough market.
Zoom can't just sit back and relax. They need to keep pushing, keep innovating.
Survival of the fittest. Tech edition.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on to Klarna. The expert sees them heading for a successful IPO.
Driven by their expansion into the U.S., right?
Right. But we know it's a crowded market. What makes Klarna stand out?
Well, the article mentions some major financial institutions backing them.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, those are big names.
It's a pretty strong vote of confidence.
It is. And the expert highlighted a few reasons why these institutions are so optimistic.
Okay, like what?
First, Klarna's focus on the U.S. market. That's a huge opportunity for growth.
Makes sense. Tap into that massive market.
Exactly. And second, they're not just offering the same old buy now, pay later.
Right. They're using AI to streamline their operations, make things more efficient.
Not just for them, but for the customer, too.
Yeah, a better user experience and lower costs for the company.
It's a win-win, really.
Smart strategy. Okay, now, Google.
Google, the giant.
The experts' bullishness on them is interesting, considering how massive they already are.
It is. How much more can they possibly grow?
Right? They're everywhere.
That's what makes the experts' analysis so fascinating. They're not focused on where Google is already dominant.
Okay, so what are they looking at?
They're excited about Google's investments in AI and quantum computing.
Those are still pretty early stage, though.
They are, but the expert sees that as the future, the long game.
It's like they're not just trying to get a bigger slice of the current pie.
Right.
They're baking a whole new pie.
I love that analogy. And they believe these investments will pay off big time.
Leading to new markets, new revenue streams, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Remember, they predicted Google stock could reach $224 in 2025.
Yeah, that's a huge jump from where it is now.
It is. But it shows you even a giant like Google can find new ways to grow, to reinvent themselves.
So there's hope for the rest of us.
There is. But there was that one potential risk the expert mentioned, remember?
Oh, yeah. The whole Google Chrome separation thing.
Right. It's hard to know what impact that would have.
Yeah. A lot of unknowns there.
It's definitely something to watch.
Okay, on to Mondelez International.
Mondelez, the snack food company.
Right. Oreos, Ritz, all that.
They're facing those challenges with changing consumer preferences.
People want healthier options.
Right. But the expert sees it as a potential buying opportunity.
That buy low, sell high idea.
They believe Mondelez can make that transition to healthier offering.
They have the resources, the brands. It's just, can they pull it off?
That's the big question.
But the expert seems optimistic.
They are. They highlighted Mondelez's strong financials, their global reach. Those are big advantages.
It's a bet on their ability to innovate, to adapt.
Exactly. All right, last but not least, we have Meta.
Meta, formerly Facebook, quite the journey for them.
It has been. And the experts focus on their data center investments. That was an interesting angle.
It was. Not what I expected.
But it makes sense when you think about the bigger picture, the digital economy.
Data is king, right?
It is. And Meta is positioning themselves to be a major player in that space.
It's funny, everyone still associates them with social media. But this expert is looking at a completely different part of their business.
That's what I love about this deep dive. Challenging assumptions, looking beyond the surface.
And don't forget, the expert isn't just talking. They put their own money on the line.
Sold their Meta shares, waiting to buy back in at a lower price.
Real commitment there. This has been an incredible journey exploring these predictions, these companies.
It has. What's your biggest takeaway?
I think for me, it's that the only constant is change.
Couldn't agree more. Every company we discussed is facing some kind of disruption.
And those that can adapt, that can innovate, those are the ones that will thrive.
Absolutely. We're not just investing in companies, we're investing in their ability to navigate this ever-changing world.
Well said. And before we wrap up, a quick reminder.
Yes, important one.
This is just one expert's opinion.
Do your own research, folks.
Consider your own financial goals, your risk tolerance.
Don't just take our word for it.
Exactly. This deep dive is a starting point.
A springboard for further exploration.
Spark your curiosity, encourage you to dig deeper.
Who knows, you might uncover the next big investment opportunity.
That's what it's all about. Well, that concludes our deep dive into these 5 potentially game-changing stocks for 2025.
Hope you enjoyed the ride.
We had a blast exploring this with you.
Stay tuned for more fascinating deep dives,
where we unpack the unexpected
and uncover those hidden insights.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.